Today is a special Sunday, right? Yes. Palm Sunday. The King has arrived into the city, and everyone was cheering, and everyone was so excited. When I think about Palm Sunday, let's think about the story from a different perspective. Are you ready? Let's try to imagine what the donkey thought. Have you ever thought about it? Probably not, huh? So the donkey coming into the city, and everyone was cheering. Everyone was ready to put their clothes on the ground, palm leaves on the ground. I mean, I think the thoughts that he had were like, I think I'm special. Like everyone is cheering. Everyone is so excited. The donkey is in town. Everyone is ready. And then I imagine the donkey looking to the other donkeys be like, very excited. Look, I'm here. And then he met a very wise donkey. And the donkey told him, hey, you know what? They're not cheering for you. They're cheering for the guy who's sitting on your back. And he was like, oh man, I didn't know this. I thought it was all about me. And I feel like sometimes we are like the donkey. We walk around, we feel like we're special. We feel like we've got it all together. We want people to cheer for us. But honestly, today I'm here and I am the donkey. Because I only carry the message of Jesus. And this is what makes it all special. Okay? This is what it's all about. Like, every one of us, like, if you're the donkey that Jesus chooses to ride, come on, guys. It doesn't get any more, it doesn't get any better, right? So we have the privilege to carry Jesus wherever we go. And him having him in our lives, that's what makes our life really special and worth living. So to receive the new King, I prepared a message for you guys called Courageous Faith. Courageous Faith. And I'll be looking at a story with you. You probably have heard the story many times, but I want to look at a certain aspect of the story you might have never looked before. So Matthew chapter 14, verses 22 to 33. Immediately, Jesus made the disciples get into the boat and go on ahead of him to the other side while he dismissed the crowd. After he had dismissed them, he went up on the mountainside by himself to pray. Later that night, he was there alone. And the boat was already considerably distant from the land, buffed by the waves because the wind was against it. Shortly before dawn, Jesus went out to them walking on the lake. When the disciples saw him walking on the lake, they were terrified. It's a ghost, they said, and they cried out in fear. But Jesus immediately said to them, take courage, it is I. Don't be afraid. Lord, if it's you, Peter replied, tell me to come to you on the water. Come, he said. Then Peter got out of the boat, walked on the water, and came towards Jesus. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, he cried out, Lord, save me. Immediately Jesus reached out his hand and caught him. You of little faith, he said, why did you doubt? And then they climbed into the boat, and the wind died down. And then those who were in the boat worshipped him, saying, truly, you are the Son of God. What an amazing story. So there are different ways how you approach fear. Some people say you overcome fear by totally expose yourself to this what you fear. Like if you're afraid of the forest by night, you should go into the forest by night to expose yourself to that what you fear, to overcome it. But it doesn't always work like that, right? It doesn't really, like, let me give you a story. Last year in summer, I took my family on a vacation, on a trip to America. Took my wife, my son, my parents, and we went to the different national parks, and it was amazing. We saw beautiful landscape. It was just phenomenal. And we took many hikes, and one day we took a hike in California in the Yosemite National Park, and it was so amazing because you would be walking alongside a river towards a waterfall. So I was the one in charge choosing the path that we would be hiking. And knowing that my mom and my wife are afraid of heights, I wouldn't tell them where we would go. So we went along the side of the river, and then we came to this beautiful 900-meter high waterfall. And everyone was excited. We were taking pictures, my mom and my dad. I took pictures of them, and then they took pictures of me and my family, and everyone was happy. And then my mom asked, so where do we go next? And I was like, do you see the top of the waterfall? They're like small stairs at the side of the mountain that you go up and you will reach the top of the waterfall. And when you go up, the wind is so strong that you will feel the water coming in your face from the waterfall. So my mom was like, nice joke, I'm not gonna come. My wife looked at me and she said, nice one, Thomas, I'm not gonna come. But at the same time, my responsibility was to be the voice of the adventure inside their ears. Hey guys, you will miss out. If you don't go up there, you will miss the view. It's beautiful. And then I played this one card. I said, if you don't go up now, you will never do it in your life. You will, like, at the end of your life, you will be like, I wish I did go up there. And then my mom said, okay, let's do it. And then step by step, stairs, go up there, and like sometimes she would stop and cling to me and she would scream because she was so afraid of the height. But then she continued and stopped and screamed again and continued and screamed, and then she got up there and then she enjoyed the view. She was so happy. Did she overcome the fear? No. She went with fear. I wish my wife could say now, I overcame it by exposing myself to it. But she's still afraid. And I feel like this is how our lives, like always, like the way we live our lives. Like we want fear to go away, but so often we go with fear. And I think the story that we just read is a perfect example how to deal with fear and to live a courageous life of faith. Peter is sitting in the boat with his friends. He's there in the boat, had a rough time, the wind was strong, the waves were high, and then Jesus appeared to them in the night walking on the lake. And they do the only normal thing that you should and could do, declare it to be a ghost. I mean, who is walking on water at night? Like, come on. Of course everyone is afraid. Of course everyone is scared and declares Jesus to be a ghost. And then Jesus reveals himself, calms the storm. He could go into the boat, they could go back to the shore, have a fish masala, have some chai, just talk, chat, everything is nice. And then tell the kids about it. You would never guess what happened. We saw Jesus walking on the lake. But there's Peter. There's Peter at the edge of the boat. Not fully in and also not fully out. at the edge of the boat, and then this Peter, can I come? It's like, why? Why would you ask something like that? What's the purpose behind walking on water? Like, what's the meaning? And then Jesus says, come. And then it starts to get interesting. Right after Jesus is saying, come. Like, if you look at the story, you could talk about many things. You could talk about how it is to walk on water. Like, imagine stepping out. The first step will be like, it's like trying to, for the first time, to ride a bicycle. It's like very like, how does it work? How to keep balance, you know? And then as you practice, you become more and more secure in the way you ride a bicycle. And I feel like this is how Peter must have felt, like taking steps. The first one were really like unsure and then more confident, and then he would be like, how it is to walk on water. Maybe we could also talk about how it is and how Jesus responds when we doubt in our journey of faith, and that Jesus is always there right on time. We're maybe sinking, but he will never let us drown. We could talk about that, but what I want to focus on today is on a moment where Peter is sitting on the edge of the boat. Not in and not fully out. I mean, wet clothes or stay dry? To make a fool of himself or to become a hero? To risk something or to stay in safety? Be normal or a little crazy? In or out? What will he do? This moment, and I feel like this is how we live our lives as Christians. What do we do when Jesus is calling us and we are sitting on the edge of our boat of life? We're there and Jesus is calling us. And I wonder what is going on through his mind. Like, Peter is known for him first speaking and then thinking. Somebody else like this? Don't show my hand. No. Like, first you say something and then, like, I wonder what he thinks in this moment. Man, I shouldn't have asked. Now, I need to act on that because everyone in the boat heard me ask Jesus. Like, for once in my life, can I just shut up? Like, once? No. And then he is, like, he's just sitting there and like, oh my goodness. What if it doesn't work? What if I step out and like go down in the water? Like, my friends, they'll be laughing. They'll be like, Peter again. We are not surprised. But then I think he's like, but what if it works? What if? What if it really works? And I step out and the water is really able to carry me. Because Jesus is walking on water, there is a possibility for me to walk on water too. And then I think, what are the others in the boat saying? Peter again. Look at this Peter. They'd be like, hey, Peter, you don't have to do it. Peter, maybe you didn't listen to God clearly. Are you sure? Are you sure Jesus called you? Did you pray enough this morning? And then this is how Christians are sometimes. They put it in the Christian language. Did you do your devotion this morning? Are you sure this is what Jesus said? Are you sure you should do this step of faith? Stay with us, Peter, because we are a caring community of faith. You are safe with us. As Christians, we tend to say stuff like that, right? But then it doesn't really matter what they think, what Peter thought, what they said or did not say. I don't know if he overcame his fear or he stepped out with fear. He did it. He just did it. And he stepped out and he risks something and he dares a lot to step out in faith. And no matter if they call him crazy or not, he just does it. And let's be honest. If you look at the story, it's pointless. Like, honestly. What difference does it make to walk on water? How many lives are getting saved? What's the purpose behind all of that? Like walking on water. Except if it shows us something about our personal journey of faith with Jesus. It's something that's very personal. And if we look at this side, it gets really exciting and also very uncomfortable. Very exciting and also very uncomfortable. There's a Christian author, his name is John Ortberg, and he wrote a whole book just on this short incident. And he called the book The Adventure You Long For. And I'm like, I'm not sure. Really? Like, I don't know if I want to be Peter. Sometimes I do when I feel full of faith, and sometimes I don't. But he's making an extinction between two kinds of people. He says the first kind of people who walk the life of faith, there are people who run on water and the ones who are sitting in the boat. And I'll be referring to those two kinds of people today while I talk about what Peter experienced. If you want to walk on water, you have to get out of the boat, right? You have to get out. But first, fears are not always bad. It's good to be afraid of some things. They are justified fears. For example, my son is almost 3 years old, and in winter when I put on the fireplace in our home, I'm glad he's afraid of the fire. I'm glad he keeps a healthy distance because his fear of the fire keeps him safe. Some fears are good for us. I mean, if I would be driving here in India, it's good to be afraid for everyone to be in the car with me, because I'm not feeling very comfortable driving here. Or if your wife asks you the question, does it look good on me, and you are not quick enough to answer, you should be afraid. Right, Pastor? For whatever's coming after that. But then those kinds of fears keep us safe. They tell us, you better not. You better not. It's reasonable. It's a reasonable kind of fear. But then there are also phobia. That's the Latin word. Like fear that it's like really, you actually need help. And sometimes as a church, we always like to pray for people who are in distress and real fear and have panic attacks. But I feel like our job as a church is to walk alongside them, counsel them, get them on a journey of freedom. It's easy to just say, I pray for you in Jesus' name. But they're still there with their fears. And it's nothing that you just say over them. It's like you journey with them. And we shouldn't take it lightly if people have really phobia in their lives and things they're really afraid of and have panic attacks. But then there's a third kind of fear, which I will be talking about today. And this is, I would call it the fear on the edge of the boat. Because this kind of fear is not unhealthy and is also not reasonable. But this kind of fear is calling you to take action. It's a kind of fear that is calling you out. There's something out there calling you, and there's something inside trying to keep you. And you are right at the edge, and you're like, should I go or should I stay? Inside it's comfortable, but outside there's someone calling me. What do I do when I'm at the edge of the boat of life. Jesus is calling. Do I go with fear? Do I overcome fear? We don't know, except for the moment we step out. And the important thing is that Jesus is calling. Don't listen to me. Don't listen to your pastor. You should listen to your pastor, but listen to Jesus first. Listen to Jesus first. Because only if Jesus is calling, He will make everything possible that follows. Like I said in the beginning, I'm only the donkey. Okay? I carry the message of Jesus. I carry Him. And I hear Jesus calling still today, not only back in the days calling out Peter to step out, He's still calling you today. And I hear Him calling you, hey, it's time to step out and invite someone for Easter. Step out and be a witness for Him. You are not His attorney, you are His witness. Just invite people and say, come and see. I don't have all the answers, but what I know is that Jesus is alive and He's able to change your life. Come and see. I hear Jesus calling you out. Don't live a comfortable Christian life. Get out of the boat and invite people who are not in the boat to get in the boat. Get out and let Jesus call you. I hear Him call you. Maybe you've carried your guilt and your shame for far too long. Your unforgiveness for far too long. It's time. I hear Jesus calling you. Get rid of your shame. Get rid of your unforgiveness. And yeah, it might be embarrassing. And yeah, it might be hurtful. But you can be sure that if you react to the call of Jesus, there is forgiveness promised. There's joy. There's peace coming. React to the call of Jesus. I hear Him calling that you should maybe, it's time for you to put the things of the kingdom of God first. Stop living for yourself. Start living for Jesus. Put the things of Him first and invest your life. Some have a career and some have a calling. I had people coming to me knowing, I told Pastor, I have a gift of selling things. I'm a natural salesman. I never learned it. It's just my gift. And from before I became a pastor, I just showed up to a company and I said, if you guys want me to sell something for you, just hire me, I'll do the job. And then for 2 years, I was one of the best salesmen without training, nothing. It's just a natural gift. And people would come up to me and they'd be like, Thomas, Christian language, God has gifted you. God has given you so many talents. Like in the economy, you would do so well. I'm like, I know, but I have a calling. And I've been called out into ministry to serve Jesus and put all things aside to only serve Him. And maybe Jesus is calling you into business. And He's calling you into something, to build something up and make a difference in the community. Jesus is still calling today. Maybe it's time for you to take this step of faith and take baptism. What is it for you that Jesus is calling you to do? Bring your talents and your gifts in this church and make a difference. Stop living for yourself. There's something bigger that we live for. Jesus is still calling you today. And this is how it works. When Jesus calls, there's a simple question. What are you going to do? You're sitting at the edge of the boat. You're going to be someone who's walking on water? Or will you be someone who will be still sitting in the boat? What is your response when Jesus is calling you? And the way you answer this question will determine the life you live. And it will make an impact in two big areas of your life. First of all, in the way you live your faith and the experience you do in your faith. Let me talk about faith. There are two kinds of faith. First, The faith that keeps sitting in the boat is a theory, is head knowledge. And so many Christians have a lot of head knowledge. They know I make fun at home with my church. The ones who are like Christian for like ages, I tell them, you know the Bible stories backwards. You know how to say the story of David and Goliath backwards because you're so Christian. You know everything. It's only head knowledge. But it's not courageous faith to sit in the boat with everyone around you believing the same and approving you and saying, yeah, I believe the same, and you're safe in the boat. You're good when you sit in the boat. You don't need courageous faith. But when you step out, it's a whole different story. It's a whole different story. I mean, when you step out, now it counts. All the Bible verses that you know, all the Christian talk that you do, does it work outside the boat? Does it work outside the boat? Are the promises of God real? You will only find out when you step out. You will only find out when you step out. You know what I find interesting? That Jesus is calling from the outside. Jesus is not inside the boat and be like, Peter, you want to walk on water? Go. Jesus is outside the boat and be like, you guys are safe. I've been with you all the time. You've just experienced a miracle with me. We fed the 5,000 and more people with just a little bit of bread. Okay, now come out. And I feel like we are having such a hard time as Christians stepping out of the boat because we feel comfortable. But you will only find out if God is really God if you step out of the boat. And if the water really carries you when you step out of the boat. And Jesus is calling you. He's calling you. I mean, head knowledge will not transform your character. Faith as a theory will not give you unspeakable joy. Faith only as a head knowledge will not make you strong to live a strong life in a difficult world. But to step out and find out will make a huge difference. What difference? You will make experiences with Jesus. Like sitting in the boat, like what kind of experience do they do? Like only getting scared of Jesus. But then stepping out, Peter experienced the miracle of the water that carries him. So, experiences. When was the last time you experienced Jesus in your personal life? At home, on your job, with your family, your relationships. When was the last time you listened to the call of Jesus and you stepped out in faith and experienced that it really worked? And sometimes I feel like the Christian life is so, it's lacking experience because we stop listening to Him. Our lives are busy. We get so much information. It's the phone that influences us and not the Word of God anymore. Like, are you making room for Jesus to talk to you? And sometimes, like, we live our Christian life based on the experience of others. I'm so glad Pastor Sam made this experience with Jesus, and he's talking about it in his sermon. Or you hear someone else experiencing Jesus, and you're like, I believe in Jesus because Pastor Sam experienced Him. That will not sustain you in your journey of faith. You need to step out and do your own experiences. And then you will find out what God has in store for you. And I feel like even for you as a church, Sam and Jemmy, there is an edge that you're sitting on, and Jesus is calling you out. It's not only personal, it's also as a ministry. That God is inviting you to step out. Give him a chance to prove himself. Give him a chance to show you that he is the God who provides, that he's the God who cares, that he's the God who actually builds his church. Are you willing to step out as a church and live for what really matters? Let me tell you this. You are not here for yourself. This church, if you are a Christian, this is what I tell my church all the time. If you are a Christian, it's not my priority to make you feel okay here in the church. Because we are united around a mission. We are united for the people, like we exist for the ones who are not here yet. We do all of this for the ones who are not here yet. We invest our lives, we give everything, we tithe and we give beyond. Why? Not for us to have a nice church, but so that the lives of people will be changed and eternity will be made new. This is why we do what we do. And we will only experience that if we are willing to put ourselves back and step out in faith for others. We exist not for us, we exist for him. So what has been Jesus telling you lately? Maybe there's something that the Holy Spirit prompted you to do. And you were so close. And I experienced that in my personal life. Sometimes I was so close and I was at the edge and I was like, Jesus, now I'll step out. And then I took a wrong decision and I went back into the boat and I made myself comfortable in the boat. And then I'm stuck in the boat. I feel like so many times we are stuck in different boats. The boat of doing nothing, the boat of like the wrong turns I took. Maybe you took a decision and you feel like, okay, God is not there for me anymore. I just be passive now. Maybe you are sitting in the boat of success, but the success is eating you up. In what kind of boat are you sitting? What's the decision God has prompted you to do, but you withdrew from it and got back in the boat and made yourself comfortable? And sometimes I felt like I'm living the wrong life. You know what I mean? It's like, I know what I was supposed to do, but I'm living a life that I'm not supposed to live. Do you know that feeling? God has called you to do something, but you took a wrong decision and now you're living in a life, or you're stuck in a life that you feel like, man, I wish I could do it over again. But this is so amazing about Jesus. He never stops calling us. He will always go the extra mile to call us. And you will experience God when you allow him to call you again. Because he will not force himself. He will not force himself. Look, Peter said, "Can I come?" It's not Jesus was on the water and be like, okay, who of the guys needs a challenge? Is it Thomas? Is it James? No, Peter always talks so much. Let's teach him a lesson. No. Peter gave him the permission to call him. Because Jesus will never force himself upon you. He will always he will always wait for your permission. And this is our part. Jesus, I give you permission to call you. You can call me out into the unknown. You can call me out into the lake and the area of possibilities and opportunities. You have the permission to call me out, Jesus. It's not too late. It's not too late. Your life is at stake. Will you live your life as a head knowledge, following Jesus, or will your life be a life full of experiences following Jesus? And I would like the worship band to come up front and join me so we can have a moment of prayer, because I feel like God is challenging some of us today to take a step of faith. And if you wouldn't mind standing up with me. I want to encourage you again that who makes the difference is Jesus. If Jesus is calling, He will provide. If Jesus is calling, He will make a way where there's no way. If Jesus is calling, He will give you the giftings that you need. If Jesus is calling, it only makes sense to step out. Because what's waiting for you on the other side is His promises, and you will experience God in action. You will experience God in action. So maybe you're here this morning and you have never stepped out of the boat. You have lived a solid Christian life. You know what to do. You know what to say and when to say it for it to sound Christian. But maybe Jesus is calling you today to step out. Or the Holy Spirit reminded you this morning about something that He's already talked about to you. Maybe He reminded you about a decision you need to take, a relationship that needs to be changed, forgiveness that needs to be spoken, changes that needs to be made in your life. I don't know what it is, but what I know is Jesus is calling. And what I like to do with my church back home is to show that we do a step of faith and a step of action. And just imagine the chair you were sitting on today is the boat you're living in. And Jesus is calling you. And if Jesus called you this morning, I want you to take a step of faith and step forward to give Jesus a signal. I heard your voice and I'm stepping out. So if Jesus is calling you today, step out in faith, come to the front. I'll be praying for you. The team will be praying for you. Let Jesus call you today into the experiences that He has for you. So if Jesus called you, please come up front and let's pray together.
Thank you for listening to our sermon today. We hope it was a blessing for you as well as your family. If you would like to support our ministry, you can do so by visiting kingcitychurch.org/give. And we will meet you next week with another inspiring sermon. God bless you.